Bring to us your poetry from inspiration sought. Come join us with your images, your verses, words, and thought. From here, we'll share your balladry with those who do not know it. This platform's here for you to show the world that you're the poet.
Welcome to episode 32 of You're the Poet, the poetry podcast featuring you. I'm host Matt Burgio, and I'm here with co-host Phil Burgio. Phil, welcome.
Thank you.
Here at You're the Poet, our purpose is to share our love of poetry with the world and invite you to do the same. I want to start by saying thank you to all of our listeners who have made You're the Poet possible. We hope you enjoy the podcast and the poetry that is shared here. Our featured guest for this episode of You're the Poet is Jonathan Phelps, who is joining us from Florida. Jonathan, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're glad you could join us, and we look forward to your contribution to the episode. To start things off, I'm going to share a classic poem for the episode. And looking for new poets to show, I dug one up by English author D.H. Lawrence. He lived from September 11th, 1885 to March 2nd, 1930. He was an English novelist, short story writer, a poet, a playwright, a literary critic, a travel writer, an essayist, and even a painter. Sons and Lovers is one of his famous novels. It's how I know him by an English class in high school. He also wrote The Rainbow, Women in Love, and Lady Chatterley's Lover.
Did he write that? Okay.
Yeah. He did, yeah. It's one people have heard of, too. The Rainbow and Women in Love were actually banned in the UK when they came out for obscenity, which was basically due to the straightforward way that he wrote about sexual attraction. In the poetry world, he wrote nearly 800 poems, and most of them relatively short. I wasn't sure if he had written any poems, and I was actually surprised to find that he had written over 800 of them. The one I'm going to be sharing today is called Bats, and it's from his poetry collection, Birds, Beasts, and Flowers, which was published in 1923. Bats. At evening, sitting on this terrace, when the sun from the west beyond Pisa, beyond the mountains of Carrara, departs and the world is taken by surprise, when the tired flower of Florence is in gloom beneath the glowing brown hills surrounding, when under the arches of the Ponte Vecchio a green light enters against stream flushed from the west against the current of obscure Arno. Look up, and you see things flying between the day and the night, swallows with spools of dark threads sewing the shadows together, a circle swoop and a quick parabola under the bridge arches where light pushes through, a sudden turning upon itself of a thing in the air, a dip to the water. And you think, the swallows are flying so late. Swallows? Dark air life looping, yet missing the pure loop. A twitch, a twitter, an elastic shudder in flight. And serrated wings against the sky, like a glove, a black glove thrown up at the light and falling back. Never swallows. Bats. The swallows are gone. At a wavering instant, the swallows gave way to bats by the Ponte Vecchio, changing guard. Bats, and an uneasy creeping in one's scalp as the bats swoop overhead, flying madly. Pipistrello, black piper on an infinitesimal pipe. Little lumps that fly in air and have voices indefinite, wildly vindictive. Wings like bits of umbrella. Bats. Creatures that hang themselves up like an old rag to sleep, and disgustingly upside down. Hanging upside down like rows of disgusting old rags, and grinning in their sleep. Bats. In China, the bat is symbol for happiness. Not for me. D.H. Lawrence.
He's in Italy, right? You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
You can tell from the onset there of Pisa and obviously some of the other locations there. I found this an interesting one. I was thinking that, here later I'm going to read a poem on bats, and I wanted to choose this one just because of how different it was. He goes into these elaborate description of the bats and using the landscape and the geography and landmarks around him to capture this moment that anyone that's been around bats has seen as they fly through the air at night at dusk.
He was actually deathly afraid of bats. That's one of the things I've read about him.
I did not know that. That's neat. Do you happen to know the word for that? For the fear of bats?
No, I do not.
Me neither.
We'll find out.
I'll have to look that one up.
Yeah. Batophobia. I like that poem. That's pretty cool. Things like hanging upside down, like rows of disgusting old rags. I like that. Right here in China, the bat's symbol of happiness. He goes, not for me.
Right.
So Jonathan let us know he does not like bats.
Yes.
Yeah, and I really like that concept that he talks about with the sort of that transition or the changing of guards between the swallows flying around and the bats flying around.
Yeah. He wrote the poem like where he was happy to see the swallows, but then the whole tone changes as soon as he realizes it's bats.
Right, right.
Oh yeah, none of his descriptions there are pleasant towards the bats.
I like to watch them fly in our backyard, you know.
Yeah. I've spent a lot of time around water, and you definitely see the swallows flying around a lot. And then if you're there later, you definitely see the bats coming out.
Hmm.
So that's neat. All right, from there, we're going to turn it over to Phil for his poem for the episode. Phil?
Okay, this poem is, I hate to use the term whimsical, but it's not deep. I just enjoy it. I do like to cook, and my poem is called Ode to My Cast Iron. Black and heavy, it holds the heat, the perfect pan when I sear the meat. It may seem strange that I name my ware. You may think I'm weird, but I don't care. Granny Griswold, the ancient one, best for cornbread and sticky bun. Old Man Lodge, stout and wide, the supreme pan for things best fried. Mr. Wagner, the perfect size, the one I choose to bake my pies. Big Red, the enamel pot for bubbly stew and chili hot. China Boy, for an added chore, frying, baking, and much more. All the utensils I use, griddles, Dutch ovens, different tools. Each has a place in my collection. They all cast their own reflection. I'll always use the old-time ware, food and cast iron, a loving pair. Philip Burgio.
All right, thank you. You definitely have a love for your cast iron.
I do. I can't, like at flea markets, I can't pass it up. I made myself a vow. If it's over $9, I won't buy it. A couple of times I've passed that up, but I do have a lot of cast iron. I mean, I used this morning for breakfast.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun. I'm the same way. I love to cook and cast iron. There's just some things you can't cook without it.
Amen. Especially cornbread. Got to have cast iron for cornbread.
Yep, exactly. And chicken and dumplings.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I'm one of those people, I tend to disagree in terms of the cast iron cooking. I think eating out of cast iron cooking is great, but as a cook or as a chef, I'm not a big fan. I think it's too heavy. It's too high maintenance.
That's what makes it great.
So are women, but you,
All the good ones are.
you know.
Well, no, I agree. As I said,
Yeah.
I think the food and everything that comes out of it is great. And I think he mentioned in there making his pies, when Phil makes an apple pie in his cast iron, it just tastes so much better than it does coming out of a regular.
And the one thing about cast iron, too, you can take it outside and throw it on a campfire.
Yep.
Truth. And I do like that, like with the Dutch ovens and stuff.
It's like it adds soul to the food.
There you go. I like that. I should put that in a poem.
It does. Well, I like that. Well, I mean, you kind of personify your cast iron in there, so I kind of
and
gives it that.
if you're into cast iron, you know what? Griswold and Wagner, Lodge.
Yeah.
Yeah. I call it a China Boy because it said made in China.
Nice. Definitely a good way to capture it all in there. All right, from here, we're going to move to my poem for the episode. I decided just to keep this short and sweet, and especially with the D.H. Lawrence poem Bats, I kind of got a chuckle out of his very long descriptive poem for the bats, and mine's nice and short. So this is a poem I wrote just watching the bats fly around one evening. It's called Busy Bats. Flap, flutter, zigzag, twirl, tumble, turn in your frantic flight throughout the night while midnight candles burn. Matthew Burgio.
Definitely describes bats.
Short and sweet.
Short and sweet. I have a hard time with that. I just can't write short ones for some reason. I don't know why.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that it's just whatever hits you. If you got a lot to say, or, sometimes it's just, it flows and you can't stop the flow.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of my poetry fluctuates in length. I was trying to think how I would share some of these super short ones. I was going to collect a couple of them together, but then I was like, you know what? Sometimes it's nice just to keep it short and have it just a nice, easy poem to read on the episode.
Absolutely.
All right, from here, we want to move to our guest section of the episode. Jonathan, you're the poet. Show us what you've got.
Hey, thank you. All right, so this first one's called Two Misfits in the Night. It's basically the first weekend I ever spent with my girlfriend. It was a very magical weekend. In the shadows of our fractured past, two souls linger, both broken yet vast. You the tempest with fires that ignite, I the wanderer who seeks out the light. Your laughter a melody dances through the air, a song intertwined with secrets we share. In every note, the story unfolds of battles fought fiercely, of hearts turned gold. We drown in our vices, we swim in the haze, but the depths of your spirit are what I shall praise. For when you move, time stutters and stalls, as though the universe in your grace enthralls. Each touch is a whisper, our breath becomes art. In the warmth of your presence, I dare to restart. Kisses like thunder, electric and bright. In the echo of darkness, you shadow the night. I hang on your words, each one like a spell. In your truth I find solace, in your laughter I dwell. Together we wander through shadows and dreams, two brilliant misfits, unraveling seams. So here's to the dance, to the struggles we face. to the music that binds us, to the love's sweet embrace. In a world that feels empty, you're my spark and my flame, an intriguing enchantress. I'll never be the same. Jonathan Phelps.
All right. Thank you for sharing. Really well written there. I like how just the
Kisses
whole,
like thunder. I like that. That's cool.
yeah, I just like the whole concept, just right along with the title, The Two Misfits, and kind of how you weave it together and weave both of you together, especially at the beginning of the poem as you develop into the night, if you will.
Yes.
Okay, you got another one for us?
The next one is called The Game My Father Taught Me. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's about my dad teaching me how to play pool. In smoky rooms where whispers weave, a green felt world, a place to grieve. The click of balls, a symphony sweet, echoes your laughter where shadows meet. Father's hands, rough as wood, guide my stance, he understood. His voice a lighthouse, a tempest roar. Focus, my child, keep one foot on the floor. With each sharp break, my spirit soared. From father to son, the game adored. And as the years unfurled their tale, a thief in the night, visions set to pale. Tapestry dimmed, colors bled gray, yet in the darkness I found my way. The heart of the game, it beats in my chest, a dance with the devil, a restless quest. Now I wield my cue with ghostly grace. Every shot of memory I dare to chase. Against the giants, though shadows intrude, in the lull of the night, my courage renewed. For though the lenses may shift and fade, in the soul of the player, the light won't trade. In each crooked shot, there's powers untold, a legend in the making in this game of old. So let them speak of vision loss, for in this game I've paid no cost. With every pocketed ball, I renew my vow to play into honor, to live in the now. Jonathan Phelps.
I like that. It reminded me of my dad teaching me how to play pool.
Yeah. I had to carry a milk crate around the table when he was teaching me at first. I grew up my whole life playing pool with him.
That's awesome. I'm always a sucker for father-son relationships and stories.
Yeah, we had the conversation when we talked earlier. That's one of the main things I liked about the show is y'all make the show.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, very good poem there. I love that whole beginning when you're describing the setup of the smoky rooms where whispers weave, a green felt world, a place to grieve. The click of the balls, a symphony sweet, echoes of laughter where shadows meet. I just thought that whole setup was really cool.
Yeah, old, smoky, seedy pool hall.
Oh, yeah.
Our neighbor had a pool table, and it was the kind with the leather pockets. It didn't have the return. So the leather pockets is filled up with the balls.
Yeah.
I don't know how old the table was, but, big old slate table and weighing a ton. But that's where I learned how to play pool.
Yeah, great tribute to your father there and learning how to play pool.
Appreciate that.
All right, before we get to the third poem, I wanted to ask you if you had anything you wanted to promote, if you wanted to talk about even your Facebook group or just anything you have going on in the poetry world.
Well, I do have a Facebook page. It's called The Key West Poet. I also got a self-published book that's on Amazon called It Is What It Is. It's kind of my first attempt at doing this. I've been writing my whole life, but I just started really sharing back in December.
Okay, great. One of the concepts of this podcast was so that we could share our poetry, and it's really evolved into getting the chance to meet a lot of people and build a community, which has been special.
Yeah, it's great.
We haven't gotten around to putting our book out yet, but made that a goal for this year to do a kind of a joint book.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Jenna, what's the name of that Facebook page again?
It's The Key West Poet. It's just Key West Poet. I'm sorry.
Key West Poet. Okay. Very good.
What was the name of the book again?
It Is What It Is.
I like that title. It Is What It Is. And we'll definitely share links to both of those when we put out the episode, both on our, on the Spotify page and also on our website where we put the information. We'll definitely share those for everybody.
Okay. Appreciate that.
Okay, you got another one for us.
Got this one here. Yeah, I wrote this one for my daughter. She's currently getting ready to graduate at FSU. And she was having a rough year. And basically everybody was getting to her and she needed a little pet. So it's called Werebeast, a knight in shining armor, and the fool in chains. Both the same person, covered in bloodstains. The hero has no savior. No one sees his distress. Abused and broken, soul snatched by the succubus. The lucky few who are able to make himself into beast no longer feel the pain of being a man in the least. For the beast has no ego to cause him to yearn. For accolades, praise are no longer his concern. The man has too much pride, always needing to win, while the beast's only concern is living life to the end. Power is not taught. Weakness is what you resist. To stay alive, your purpose, fear does not exist. Homo sapiens lived in fear when they realized mortality. The weak left to die, the strong left to deal with morality. Ferocity, a superfluous emotion, unknown by the meek. Today's society has grown timid, no longer wishes to be unique. Remember, my child, do not follow the masses into the storm. Stay in your lane, no matter the weather, not part of the norm. The werebeast inside you will guide you to fight when you shift to your true form in the still of the night. Not feeling the pain, although you're bloody from war. I made you the beast, like my father before. Do not fear the world will fear you. But remember to be honest, to thine own self be true. Jonathan Phelps.
All right. Thank you for sharing.
What a good inspirational poem to a child.
I think it is. And I think it's interesting that it's almost like someone would read this and be like, wow, you wrote this for your daughter?
Yeah, she is a beast. She's a very strong-willed person.
And I love that. And I love how you set this whole thing up with that inner beast. And then towards the end there in that penultimate stanza, people can see that you're speaking to your child, to your daughter there.
Yeah.
And Shylock's remark at the end, I like that.
Yep. A little ode.
Very cool.
That was a good poem. Good inspirational poem.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, and before we move on, is there anything else you wanted to share or any other thoughts on poetry or how you got into poetry or your inspirations or anything?
Same story as you. Middle school, did the Robert Frost poem for school, had to memorize it, and then had to write a little short one myself. And it just spit out of me. Like I didn't even have to think about it. And it just kind of sparked something. And I've always written since. I took a hiatus. Like I got married and was married for 14 years, and I just didn't write at all while I was married. And then got divorced. And when I met the girlfriend I wrote the first poem about, she was a school teacher who we started talking about writing and kind of sparked it back up in me. And this is where it's all come from since.
Very cool. And I forgot about that when you messaged me back about how you had listened to some of the previous episodes, in episode 1, that you also had read that Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening in middle school and had to memorize it.
Yes.
I thought that was really cool.
And that poem you wrote about us was fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Oh, yes.
That was really, really good.
Yeah, I listened to probably about 13 or 14 of your episodes and was like, man, I got to do something for these guys.
Yeah, we'll have to share that on our Facebook group.
That was a big honor.
Yeah, Jonathan wrote us a poem about You're the Poet in the podcast, and we were very honored and humbled by that. Thank you.
No problem at all. It's my pleasure.
As we wrap things up, we want to let our listeners know we are grateful that you've taken the time to tune in. We hope you're enjoying the poetry shared here, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast and share it with others. If you are enjoying the podcast and would like to support You're the Poet and what we are doing here, we have set up a patron site at buymeacoffee.com/you'rethepoet. Thank you for your support as we continue to grow. If you've written any poetry and you want to share it here, whether you just have an interest in poetry, consider yourself an amateur poet, or are a professional poet with published works, contact us to be a guest on a future episode. Please check out the website at you'rethepoet.com where you can find info about the podcast and all the episodes. Follow us on Facebook for updates and info, and be sure to join our Facebook You're the Poet community page where poets can share their work and interact with other members of the community. Send us an email to host@you'rethepoet.com for feedback or questions about the podcast and how to be our next guest. Also, we've been working to put up our podcast episodes on YouTube. They're still just audio, but you can find them there under You're the Poet Podcast, and we're working to build an Instagram presence as You're the Poet Podcast as well, so please follow us there. Until next time, Phil, thank you for joining us.
Anytime.
Jonathan, thank you for being our guest.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, thank you guys. Goodbye.